Greetings. I'm Michael Hershenson, President of the Queen Anne Historical Society, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the 2020 award celebration. We are pleased to honor 5 different businesses, structures, sites on Queen Anne that represent the best in preserving the historic fabric of our neighborhood. In fact, in preserving the quality of life in our neighborhood. We will take you through to each one of the 5 sites and describe the architectural and historical significance of the businesses and the buildings to which we are delighted to make these awards. Here we are in front of the Marble Lindsay House, to which the Queen Anne Historical Society has given the Preserving Queen Anne Heritage Award. This is a rare surviving example of a Queen Anne style house, the architectural style for which our neighborhood is named. The Queen referenced here reigned from 1702 to 714 and was later the first sovereign of Great Britain following the unification of England, Wales, and Scotland. Ireland came much later. It is unusual that the Queen ultimately had nothing to do with the architectural style. As we learn from Wikipedia, Queen Anne style architecture in the United States is a wholly different style from English Queen Anne style architecture and normally includes no elements very typical of the architecture of Queen Anne's reign, the name having been devised for marketing purposes. Many features of Queen Anne houses are rooted in the English style, but neither style has anything to do with the Queen or her time. Distinctive features of American Queen Anne style may include an asymmetrical facade, and the facade of this house, based on a photograph we just looked at, was totally asymmetrical and totally different from what you see now. I think it had 3 gables on the front of the house, and now there are but 2. The conical tower is also part of that Queen Anne style, and there used to be many of these houses in the neighborhood, and especially down the hill in Lower Queen Anne. You'll notice on the tower, the conical tower, you'll notice the fish scale, between the windows. And you'll also notice the shingles that have a sort of a diamond shape, which is also very much part of the Queen Anne style. And while a lot of this has been restored, the owner, Mr. Lillibridge, has done a really marvelous job of recreating the historic elements of the house in this job. The house is also important. Because, first of all, in the early part of the last part of the 19th century, after 1890 when it was built, and into the 20th century, this was really a working class neighborhood. And from where I'm standing down the hill, you could see where the streetcar ran on Olympic Place. Now, the other thing that's really kind of neat about this house is that it was built by a man named Gillette Marble and his wife Rachel. Gillette was a mason who arrived in Seattle at just the right time because Seattle had just burned. And all of a sudden the city gets rebuilt in brick, and he not only takes part in the rebuilding of the city, he also has money to build this house, which he largely did by himself. Then in 1895, Gillette Marble and Rachel sold the house to Edward and Abby Lindsley. And Abby is really important in the history of Seattle, at least the European, or what we call the Euro-American history of the city, because she was the daughter of David Denny and Louisa Boren Denny, a young couple who as not a couple, but as young children, arrived at Alki in 1851, and then shortly thereafter, they get married and begin having a family. Abby was the 3rd child of David Denny and Louisa Denny, and she was born just down the hill on the site of what is now Seattle Center. So this is really a history, a building rich in the history of Queen Anne. The Preserving Queen Anne Heritage Award for 2020 to Lily Bridge.
Thank you. There you go.
And this is the marble Lindsay House built in 1890.
Great.
Here you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, here we are on McGraw Place, which is part of Queen Anne Boulevard, and formerly a streetcar line. Streetcar used to run right here in front of the store, which was like many, almost all the stores on Queen Anne were on streetcar lines. And also the other thing is that, we are unusual in our neighborhood in Queen Anne because this is really a residential inner city neighborhood. And what makes it even more special is that it has these incredibly high walkability scores. You can get here from almost any place on Queen Anne walking. You don't have to take your car. It's really a special aspect of the city. And what's really interesting now in this time of Amazon, Grubhub, and DoorDash, things are becoming even more walkable because we don't have to leave our house to get our groceries. It's pretty amazing. So contributing to the walkability is this wonderful hardware store, Five Corners Hardware, been here, which is this year celebrating its 80th anniversary. So we're thrilled to recognize the significance of these heritage businesses in our neighborhood and the degree to which they add value to the quality of life in Queen Anne. The store was founded in 1940. Actually, it turns out it was just 1 year before my birthday. It was June 1st, 1940, and it was started by a man named Sam Shepard, who then sold it to his niece and her husband, his name was Jensen, and Mr. Jensen actually then sold the building to his daughter, Jean Shook, and it is now Jean's son, Brian, who owns the building. And not only the building, but the business. And they've been in business, therefore, for 80 years, an amazing amount of time on Queen Anne, and really one of those places that makes living here so very special. We are delighted to call it our Historic Hardware Store Award.
All right, here you go. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you very much for this acknowledgement. And we're really sorry that we can't celebrate our birthday the way we wish we could of 80 years. We'd love to be serving food out here and doing what we did for our 75th. This is quite an honor, and it's quite an honor to be on Queen Anne for this long.
Well, we're still here at the Five Corners where the Queen Anne Helpline has its offices. The Queen Anne, and of course what's really amazing, this is an intersection which is extremely busy. Used to have a streetcar line right here on McGraw Place, but still there are 4 buses that ride down this street every day. The number 3, the number 4, the number 29, and the number 13. So you can get here from anywhere in the city, which makes the Helpline extremely accessible to people who don't have cars. The Helpline. Oh, and the other thing that's really neat about the winners of this year's Queen Anne Historical Society Awards is how many grocery stores are actually involved. Because the Queen Anne Hardware, the Five Corners Hardware store, was originally a grocery store before 1940. The other award we're going to be giving today is to Ken's Supermarket. And the Queen Anne Helpline was founded by the owner of the Queen Anne Thriftway, which used to be up on Queen Anne Avenue. Dick Rhodes founded it, and he recruited a friend of his, Pat Sobek, to be the executive director, and it made it into a really extremely important part of the fabric of our neighborhood. The Queen Anne Helpline was formed in 1982. It's set up to prevent homelessness and stabilizes the lives of our neighbors through financial and supportive services. It values above all dignity, community, and equity. And people are able to come here, get food, get clothing, and even get one of those essential tools these days for finding a job. They are equipped with cell phones. So the Queen Anne Helpline is extremely important. Lisa Moore was the second director after Pat, who is here ran it for nearly 20 years. And now there is Cara Lauer is the executive director and someone who fully embraces the spirit of the Queen Anne Helpline.
Thank you, Queen Anne Historical Society, for honoring Queen Anne Helpline with this award. We've been around since 1982, and we certainly feel grateful to be part of the history of this community. The community's been very strong in response to the pandemic in terms of donations and stepping up to support neighbors in new, creative ways. So we really appreciate this acknowledgement and look forward to continued working with you. Thank you.
Well, here we are in front of Ken's Market, which is receiving our Friendly Grocery Store Award. Like so many of the businesses we've honored this year, this store is also on a major trolley line and now bus line, since the number 2 comes right down here and turns around a couple of blocks away and heads back downtown. Ken's is owned and managed by 3 men, Eric Giles, George O'Connor, and Joe Vazzari. And a bit like the Five Corners hardware store, Eric is the grandson of the man who started the store, Ken. Ken Giles started the store in 1964. In fact, he bought it in 1964, and it probably was a grocery store before that. And this is really a neighborhood store. For example, 2 of the owners, Joe and George, used to play soccer with my son. So it's all small town kind of feeling when you shop at Ken's. Ken had a business partner when he opened it, a guy named Vic Caliper. And after working here for a few years, they decided to concentrate on another store they had. They sold it, and then later, people in Ken's family bought the store back, and ultimately it was Eric and George and Joe who bought it. And so it's sort of in the family, although it's a really expanded family. I think it's really important that we have these neighborhood grocery stores where you can get everything you need quickly and, again, add value to the quality of life in the city. The owners of this store say they offer an extended pantry to all the people who live in the neighborhood. And certainly the people I know who shop here regularly love Ken's.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. Well, thank you for this award. We are honored. We've all grew up here on Queen Anne and really appreciate all our customers that have supported us through all the years. Also, couldn't do it with all our employees either that work with us and have been by us for all these years. It's an honor to be given this award, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
The Queen Anne Historical Society is delighted to honor the Fionia Apartments on John Street. The Fionia is typical of the buildings that occurred in the 1920s, this one from 1922, that represented a boom in apartment houses on Lower Queen Anne. In fact, the apartment houses were all over the south slope of the hill. Anyway, this is a typical apartment building of many that were done at the time. It is a wooden building with a brick veneer, which means it is relatively safe in an earthquake. The wood will move and maybe some bricks will fall off, but the whole building won't collapse onto itself. There are 59 units in this building, and it was designed by architect William J. Aitken, who had a lengthy career in Seattle and in the Northwest. He was actually born in Scotland in 1889 and came to Seattle in 1914, where he held architectural license number 4. The building is relatively unchanged from its original looks. Unfortunately, of course, all the windows have been replaced. But the reason we want to honor this building is because the owner took such care in building an addition, a large addition to the building on First Avenue North, and actually separating it from the Fionia so that there is a gap and the integrity of the historic building is protected. So congratulations to the owners of the Fionia for this wonderful job. Thank you ever so much for celebrating these wonderful Queen Anne businesses and buildings that contribute so much to the vitality of life on Queen Anne. The Queen Anne Historical Society is proud to encourage all the people on Queen Anne to protect the historic fabric of our community for generations to come.